I'd like to welcome everybody to this evening's meeting. This is the 12th meeting of the year of the Board of Directors of the City of Hot Springs. We'll begin with an invocation by Pastor Capaci, and I'll lead the Pledge of Allegiance. All rise.
Let's pray. Father, we just thank you so much for this beautiful, amazing city that we get to live in and be a part of. And I just want to thank you personally, God, for this amazing group of people who have a lot of things to talk about and discuss. I pray that you'd give them wisdom. I pray that you give them discernment in the decision-making here. And we just thank you for the opportunity to live in this awesome country and in this state and in this city. We're so blessed. And we ask that you just continue to bless this city, continue to put your hand and hedge of protection around this city, and that you would just give us a great evening and a successful evening and an evening that would be worthy of you. God, we love you. We thank you for all you've done for us and all you're going to do in this city. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call this meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Director Aaron Holliday. Here. Director Elaine Jones.
Here.
Director Marcia Dobbs-Smith. Here. Director Carol Weatherford.
Here.
Director Karen Garcia. Here. Director Steve Trusty.
Here.
Mayor Pat McCabe.
Here. This time we'll consider approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Items to be moved from consent agenda to new business.
Yes, Mayor. I'd like to move item 8 to new business, if we could, please.
Okay. Got 8 to new business. Any other changes, possibly? Director Garcia?
I would move item 1 to the first item of new business.
Okay. So we got items 1 and 8. Any other items on the consent agenda you'd like under new business? Very good. So I'll entertain a motion to for items 1 and 8 to be moved to new business.
So moved.
Second.
Who made the Director Dobbs-Smith, seconded by Director Trustee. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Now we need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Director Garcia.
Second.
Seconded by Director Weatherford. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is approved. So item 1 under the consent agenda will now be the first item under new business. And item 8 on the consent agenda will be the second item under new business. Thank you. Approval of the minutes of the regularly scheduled meeting of June 7, 2022. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to those minutes as presented? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Director Trustee, seconded by Director Jones. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Recognition of guests. Do we have any member of the board have a special guest? Or Bill, do you have a special guest? I mean, they're all special. We appreciate you coming out.
Well, Mayor, we have several that are in the audience tonight for our bond issuance that'll be coming up later on your agenda.
Okay, very good. Board of Directors, or excuse me, City Managers report. Mr. Burrow.
Thank you, Mayor. The Juneteenth celebration Saturday, we had a great event at the Farmers Market celebrating Juneteenth, and I want to send out a special thanks to the police department who provided food and drinks for the festivities. They had several staff as well as volunteers on hand, headed up by Chief Chapman and Assistant Chief Billy Harverton at the grill, manning the burgers and the hot dogs, so we appreciate you guys being there. Want to talk about our CDBG annual action plan. It's available now for public review and comment. The public is invited to review and comment on the city's community development block program, its 2022 annual action plan from now through July the 4th. It is scheduled to be brought before the board for approval consideration at your July 5th meeting. The 2022 Annual Action Plan is currently available online at cityhs.net/community-development, or you can find that under our Planning and Development page. We have officially enrolled in the Water Bill Assistance Program. It's a program, and we are a registered vendor with the Low Income Household Water Assistance Program, meaning the city's water customers can now go online and apply for up to $2,000 in payment assistance. Residents can apply for the program at a website that we'll put out on the front of our page as well. It's arkansas.lihwap.com. That's a lot to remember, but you get to it through our site. This free federally funded program will help low-income households pay their residential water and wastewater past due balances. It's a great program. As you recall, at our last meeting, I spoke about the regrind giveaway. This is the millings that we have from paving. So the street division began a regrind giveaway on June 7th, and over the first 3 days, they loaded up more than 2,100 tons. The free regrind will continue through June 30th while supplies last at their facility at 443 Leewood Street. Also have a kudos for our Animal Services Department for their outreach and adoption efforts. They at our Animal Services, they work to rehome many of the pets that are coming into the shelter. The first 10 days of this month, they actually had 121 animals come into the shelter. Along with their outreach efforts, including on Pet Finder and Facebook, they reached out to other animal rescue organizations to see if they could take any of the animals. In just 3 days, all of the dogs and puppies that were ready for adoption at that time, about 60, we were able to send out to other rescue shelters. Street striping's underway. You'll see crews out. Restriping around 20 city roadways started last Thursday. It'll continue through this Friday. Motorists are asked to watch for paint crews and avoid driving on the freshly painted areas. I did see one that's already kind of got into those, and we see tire tracks kind of meandering through the next couple of lanes. The intake for the Lake Ouachita Water Supply Project is progressing smoothly. Garrett Excavation was scheduled to finish the clearing, grubbing, and grading for the tunnel site last week. The 2,600 feet of 60-inch casing pipe, about 23,000 pounds per stick, is scheduled to ship from Houston in late June. As you heard from me earlier today, the June 28th, we won't have the actual boring machine here on the 28th. However, it has been rescheduled, I believe, in July, so we'll get that date back out to you. Mayor, please, my report.
Very good. Thank you. Board of Directors, announcements of upcoming events. Do directors have upcoming events they'd like the public to be aware of?
I got one.
Boy, first time in a long time.
I
It's been
got
real
one,
silent. Director Jones?
Yes, me.
I can't see it through 3 plates of glass. A lot of reflection.
Listen, on Thursday, April the 30th, Patrilla and her band and Ron Hall will be having a function at the Vapors Live. The tickets are $10 online, and they're $15 at the door. You'd rather go online and get them if you're smart, and then save that money, Mr. Trustee. But anyway, it's for a good cause, and I'd ask that everyone that can and will, from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, we will be dancing. You too, Mayor, you can dance that night. Thank you.
And what was the date on that?
Thursday, April the 30th.
April 30th?
June, I'm sorry. What
That's why I wanted
happens
to
in
check my
April?
hearing.
Oh, April is her birthday.
Okay.
June
June
30th.
30th.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other announcements? Hearing none, we'll move into the consent agenda. These are generally of a routine nature and do not merit individual discussion, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Obviously, we had some items pulled off, but those items that remain.
So moved.
Director Trustee, seconded by
Second.
Director Garcia. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda is adopted. Okay, so we have, first action item under new business will be item 1. Consider resolution R-22-104, and ask city attorney to read by title. Mr. Albright is remote tonight on Zoom, so welcome from Zoom land.
Thank you, Mayor. Apologize for any inconveniences. This is Resolution R-22-101, a resolution approving the City of Hot Springs financial statements for April 2022. That concludes your reading. If you would entertain a motion, second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
I so move, Mayor.
Director Jones, seconded by
Second.
Director Dobbs-Smith. And staff report will be provided by Finance Director Doretha Yates.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Mayor. This is the April 2022 financial statements. And I'd like to maybe go over a few brief points on these financial statements, and then if you've got any questions, I'd be glad to cover those. First point I'd like to make is in general fund, we've got a reserve that the board has reserved for $2,993,000. $2 million of that is for the tear down of ASMSA, and the $993,000 is for parking improvements. The police fund so far this year has had a income of about $1.5 million. This is not common for the police fund. The police fund generally only has a break-even amount. The $1.5 million that you see is where we've transferred salary over to the ARPA funds, and what's left in there is for all of the capital improvements that we're planning on financing out of the police fund as opposed to out of the ARPA fund. So that fund will carry a balance, a significant balance, until those funds are all expended. In the street fund, there's a reserve, $1,761,000, and that is a reserve that you all have set aside for additional street paving in the future. The Employee Wellness Fund has a cash balance of about $8 million, and that is a reserve for that fund. As you know, in the past, that fund's been somewhat unpredictable, and we have, over the last few years, managed to build up a nice reserve there. In the monthly statement, there is a monthly summary income statement, and I think that's a statement really that is the most useful in that it shows you the a comparison of 2021 to 2022. So in 2021, at this point, our general fund had a net income of about $1.2 million. In 2022, it has a net income of $2.8 million. Of that $2.8 million, there's about $395,000 that we transferred in May to the Oaklawn Reserve Fund, according to the board's wishes. And that makes that balance in that Oaklawn Reserve Fund now $1.1 million. We'll talk about a little bit more about the difference between last year's net income and this year's net income. In the street fund, sorry about that, I thought I turned that off. I apologize. In the street fund, last year we had $398,000. This year we've got $297,000. If you look at it, the revenue from the street fund has significantly increased. The revenue for the street expenditures have significantly increased, and that's spending out of the Pave It Forward funds. Those come into us as revenue, so that's that big increase. The airport, last year at this time it had a $305,000 net income. This year it has a $281,000 net loss. One of the major factors in the airport fund is the number of grants that they're getting. So if you drill down in the back where it talks about the different revenues, you'll see that they had a significant decrease in grant revenue this year as opposed to last year so far. The water fund, in 2021, we had revenue of $6,020,000. In 2022, we have a revenue of $6,022,000, which is a very small difference. Well, as you know, we had a 3% increase in rates, but when you compare the water consumption for 2022 to last year, it's a little bit over a 10% decrease in the number of gallons consumed. As you know, we've had a very, very wet first few months this year, and last year we had a huge storm, and people were leaving their faucets dripping for several days. I'm sorry. So that's the difference in those two revenue numbers. So those are sort of some of the significant things I wanted to point out there. General fund, sales tax, we're up $845,000 compared to last year. Now, some of that does contain estimates. As you know, we have a 2-month lag, so some of that is estimates. Also, the STRs are up $146,000, business license, and most of that is STRs. Alcohol-related revenue, this one's interesting, up $192,000. So those are some of the major increases that you'll see in the revenue for the general fund. Expenditures for general fund are pretty much what they are. Obviously, sales tax is up in police and fire also, which decreases their dependence on general fund and lowers those transfers and the expense out of general fund. Those are the main things that I wanted to point out, and I'm also be happy to take any questions that you all have.
Any questions of Ms. Yates? Director Garcia?
Thank you for adding the monthly CFA report. I still would like to see our, as we kind of went back and forth on looking at the total award and the commitments we have and the balance that remaining that we actually have to spend. And then I had some questions about, I was going through on our due to and due from, and I didn't get everything balanced out, and I don't want to take up everyone's time and going through those details, but wanted to get with finance to if it's okay to ask some specific detailed questions.
Absolutely.
And so my question to the board is, instead of the motion to approve, I don't feel comfortable voting to approve, but to acknowledge receipt and file for audit, or either table till next month. And that's the
Discussion amongst directors, or you have any?
It's all right.
What should we do?
Brian, what are some of the options here?
Well, certainly Director Garcia mentioned a motion to table. You could do that certainly until your next board meeting, until the additional information is provided and satisfactory to the board.
Then, therefore, I move to table till our next month's meeting.
And I'll second it,
Yeah,
Mayor.
motion to table by Director Garcia, seconded by Director Jones.
Yes.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Director Holliday? Aye. Director Jones?
Aye.
Director Dobbs-Smith? Aye. Director Weatherford?
Aye.
Director Garcia?
Aye.
Director Trustee?
Aye.
Mayor McCabe?
Aye. The second item on the consent agenda that was moved to new business was item number 8, Resolution R-22-111, and I'd ask City Attorney to read by title.
Mayor, this is Resolution R-22-111, a resolution authorizing out-of-state travel for certain board members as required by Resolution number 8496 as amended. That concludes your reading. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
Move.
Director Jones, seconded by
Second.
Director Holliday. And Bill, or who's going to talk on this?
I can. We've had a request from 3 of our board members to attend the National League of Cities City Summit in Kansas City, Missouri. We've got 3 directors that expressed interest: Aaron Holliday, Director Marcia Dobbs-Smith, and Director Steve Trusty. Be glad to answer any questions. I will say that, National League of Cities is really the main organization where members of an elected body from municipalities can go and actually learn several things through the daily trainings. I think several of you have been to National League of Cities in the past, and there's not really another comparable training institute other than the National League of Cities. It's where the elected bodies typically go.
Any discussion amongst directors? Any questions?
I brought it up. You got something to say about it?
Okay.
Oh, you want me to say something?
Well, you the one.
I'll be more than happy to say something about it. Reason I pulled it is because 2 weeks ago, we had a couple of directors vote against the money to go to the boys club, or not the boys club, but the ballpark.
Oh.
And now you have 2 of them wanting to travel. So, I can't justify voting for them to travel if they can't vote for kids to play ball, which was already in the budget, and we pulled it aside. They want to vote against it. So I'm just, not going to pull any punches. That's the way I feel.
Okay.
Of course, we all have our ability to cast a vote.
And correct.
And,
And I will agree with the city manager. This is something that I think all city directors should attend. I've attended several times myself and come back with quite a bit of information. It's something you should do. But
And this year it's in Kansas City, so it's kind of in our geographic area versus East Coast or West Coast, which has occurred many a time. So, any other comments? Please call the roll.
Director Jones?
Aye.
Director Dobbs-Smith? Aye. Director Weatherford?
no,
Director Garcia?
Aye.
Director Trustee?
Aye.
Mayor McCabe?
Aye.
Director Holliday?
Aye.
Resolution is adopted. We have a public hearing scheduled for this evening, and it reads as follows: to hold a public hearing on the confirmation of existing rates charged for services of the City of Hot Springs, Arkansas wastewater system, and the proposed issuance of bonds secured by revenue of the system. Mr. Albright, do you want to? I know I can open the public hearing, but before I do that, is there any comments that you want to make on this?
Mayor, you've essentially summed it up. I just wanted to make the board aware that the board has to make the determination whether this is in the best interest of the city to do these things that are being proposed. This is a required public hearing on these matters. It actually addresses the next 3 agenda items. So bear in mind that any comments that you might receive during the public hearing portion that you're about to go into may be answered or resolved with information that's forthcoming on each one of the following agenda items.
Very good. Thank you. Well, so I'll declare the public hearing open at this time. Is there any individual in the audience that wanted to come forward and speak regarding this topic? Any member of the audience that'd like to come forward and address the board on these topics? Hearing none and seeing none, I'll close the public hearing at this time. Brings us to consider ordinance O-22-22, and I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules to read by title only.
So moved.
Second.
Director Holliday, seconded by Director Garcia. So I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is approved. Council, please read ordinance by title.
Mayor, this is ordinance number O-22-22, an ordinance confirming rates for services rendered by the wastewater system of the City of Hot Springs, Arkansas, and prescribing other matters related thereto. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion if you.
Motion to adopt. So moved.
Second.
I got them all now. Director Trustee, and Director Jones. And our staff report will be provided by Doretha Yates, Finance Director. No? Yes?
I believe B was going to give that report.
Okay. Brian? You
Yes, sir.
provide the
Sorry, I was
staff
looking at-
report?
Yes, I was looking at the Arkansas Doretha. Essentially, Mayor, what this is, we already have these rates. These are not new rates. There's no increase in the rate. There's no extension of any time on the rates. This is merely a confirmation of those rates as it pertains to the bonds that you were going to be considering in the next two items.
Very good. Anybody sign up from the public to speak on this? Any discussion amongst Director Garcia?
Just to reiterate and make sure everyone understands, this is not a rate increase. These are the existing rates, and we're confirming that will cover our needs.
Yeah.
Correct.
That is fact.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Anybody in the public audience that would like to speak on this item? Please call the roll.
Director Dobbs-Smith. Aye. Director Weatherford.
Aye.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Trustee.
Aye.
Director Holliday.
Aye.
Director Jones.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Ordinance is adopted. We'll consider ordinance O-22-23, and I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules to read by title.
So move.
Director Jones, seconded by Dobbs-Smith, Director Dobbs-Smith. All in favor of the motion to suspend the rules, read by title only, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion is approved. Council, please read by title.
Ordinance O-22-23, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of wastewater revenue bonds for the purpose of financing a portion of the cost of betterments and improvements to the wastewater system of the city of Hot Springs, Arkansas, providing for the payment of the principal and interest on the bonds, prescribing other matters related thereto, and declaring an emergency. That concludes reading, Mayor. If you would now entertain a motion and a second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
So move.
Director
Second.
Jones, seconded by Director Garcia. And staff report will be provided by Finance Director Doretha Yates.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe all of you have a copy of the pricing report that we received after the pricing of these bonds today. And this item right here covers the issuance of taxable Series A and non-taxable Series B. Last week, our financial advisor made a presentation and gave you what we were looking at as far as what we thought the bonds were going to come in. Our taxable Series A, we were using a rate of about 4.41, but they actually came in at 4.32, so we were able to bring those in at a little bit better rate. Both Series A and Series B are private placements, and they will be placed with Truist Bank, which is a North Carolina banking corporation. On Series B, we had showed the board a rate of 3.64, and those actually came in at 3.62. One of the other things that we changed was when we showed the board the rates last week, we were looking a little bit over a $5 million issuance on Series 2022B. However, the rates were so good that we were able to take a portion out of the 30-year piece, which is the public placement. It'll be on the next item on this agenda. But we took 2 years of maturities and stretched it out and put it on the Series B at a much lower rate. We'll cover the Series C a little bit more later, but all of these changes of the rates, the more favorable rates, and changing those maturities around, we were able to save a total of $695,000 over the life of this bond on principal and interest. So on Series 22A, again recapping, we issued $10,110,000 at face value for a coupon of 4.32. And on Series 2022B, we issued $8,835,000 face value with a coupon of 3.62%.
Any questions of Ms. Yates? Thank you. Anybody? And nobody from the public had signed up to speak. Any discussion amongst directors? Director Garcia?
Yes, Mayor, could someone explain, for the benefit of those in the public that don't have a common understanding of what our consent administrative order is? We're doing these, work that has to be done, but we're also under this consent administrative order referred to as the CAO, and everyone in the public may not be as knowledgeable about the requirements as the board members.
I'll try to take that on. About 12 years ago, we entered into a consent administrative order with ADEQ to repair our aging wastewater infrastructure. We had chronic overflows in, I believe it was 18 manholes throughout the city. We spent about $90 million over the past 12 years repairing the Fairwood and the Stokes Creek Basin. Hot Springs is split into 3 basins: Fairwood, Stokes, and Gulfa. We have some work to continue, and that's what this bond issuance is about. And that's work that's related to the Gulfa system, and that runs on the east. It's probably one of our oldest lines. It runs on the east and northern sections of Hot Springs and continues on to Catherine Heights Road, where our Gulf pump station is, and from there it traverses that wastewater all the way to the plant on Davidson Drive. We have both gravity sewer and force main from the pump station itself, and so both of those are being evaluated now. We're actually replacing the force main coming out of Gulfa to the plant, and then we've got a group that are now basically x-raying the line from the Gulf plant going east and going north, looking at that to make sure we've got sections that are, if they're not intact, we want to dig those out, replace them. There's a good chance that we'll have to replace that entire line. In addition, there's work being done at the headwork, or not at the headworks, but at the Davidson plant itself. As you know, we've rebuilt the headworks portion of the plant. Now we have the plant itself, and the flows through there. Biosolids is one that's still going to be coming in the future that we're going to have to address, but right now our focus is on that consent administrative order. We entered into a new order, 2 new orders, one with the plant and one with the Gulf lines. So we're in constant communication with ADEQ regarding the consent administrative order. These funds is what we need to have in place to be able to do the work. We've got about $17 million now that we're working with on Gulf. It's about a $60 million project. We're hoping those rates stay with things we've seen over the past several months. Some of these jobs are coming in well over what was anticipated pre-COVID. But we're continuing to work those. We've got about $17 million in projects happening now. This $45 million will be in addition to that, and hopefully we'll be able to finish out at least the Gulf Basin and some of the work at the plant.
Thank you. Very good
good.
explanation.
Thank you for that great overview. 3 minutes or less.
That's seldom for me.
So any discussion amongst directors? Any further questions or discussion amongst directors? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Director Weatherford?
Aye.
Director Garcia?
Aye.
Director Trusty?
Aye.
Director Holliday? Aye. Director Jones?
Aye.
Director Dobbs-Smith?
Aye.
Mayor McCabe?
Aye. Ordinance is adopted.
Mayor, there is an emergency clause which is contained in Section 23, which I'll read in its entirety. Section 23 is hereby ascertained and declared the project is immediately needed for the preservation of the public peace, health, and safety, and to remove existing hazards thereto. The project cannot be accomplished without the issuance of the bonds. Therefore, it is declared that emergency exists, and this ordinance, being necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, and safety, shall be enforced and take effect immediately upon and after its passage. That concludes the reading of the emergency clause. If you would entertain a motion second to adopt.
Motion to adopt emergency
So
clause.
moved.
Director Garcia, seconded by Director Trustee. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Emergency clause is adopted. Now we'll consider ordinance O-22-24, and I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules to read by title only.
So moved.
Director Trustee, seconded by
Second.
Director Dobbs Smith. I got a motion and a second. All in favor to suspend the rules and read by title only, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is approved. The council, please read by title.
Ordinance O-22-24, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of wastewater revenue bonds for the purpose of financing a portion of the cost of betterments and improvements to the wastewater system of the city of Hot Springs, Arkansas, providing for the payment of the principal and of interest of bonds, prescribing other matters relating thereto, and declaring an emergency. That concludes reading. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion if you can.
Motion to
moved.
adopt. Moved by Director Garcia, second by Director Trustee. And Ms. Yates, Finance Director, will provide the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. The putting together a bond issue is a major task, and I'd be remiss tonight if I didn't introduce the members of our team. So you know Bob Wright with Cruz and Associates. He was not able to be here with us tonight, but he was here with us last Tuesday night. Also, we have our legal counsel, Ryan Bowman. We have our lead underwriter, Cheryl Sluderman from Raymond James. And we have our Stevens underwriter, Leanne Burnett from Stevens. So thank you guys for being here, and they're the ones that can answer the tough questions. So this issue is our Series 2022C issue, and this is the public placement. And this one was the one that was sold, and it was originally, we felt like the interest rate would be somewhere around 4.587. It came in at 4.596, so it's pretty much essentially what we did talk about before it was sold. We have 3 different coupons with these. We have a $5,025,000, $9,935,000, $12,340,000 for a total par value of $27,300,000. These were sold at a slight discount. At the time that you price bonds or you're putting an issue together, you have to determine what you think the interest rate is going to be at that time. Between the time you actually put your bond issue together on paper and you go out to the market generally changes. The market can improve. You can sell the bonds for a little bit more than the face value, and that's a premium. The market can go down a little bit, and you don't quite get what you get on the face value, and that's what happened here. So the par value of the bonds was $27,300,000. The actual price that we sold it at was $26,754,657. So the discount on these was $545,343. So that's what that original discount is. The total cost of issuance for all these bonds, and I'm not including the insurance premium or the surety bond, because these are credit enhancement tools and they affect the interest rate of the bond. So I'm not including those as issuance costs, but the total issuance cost without those was $509,500, and that's about 1.1% of the entire par value of the bonds. The complete par value of the bonds was $46,245,000. That's what the issuance cost came up to. And that's pretty much on a little bit lower actually than industry standards.
Any questions of Ms. Yates? Thank you. Anybody from the audience? Any discussion amongst directors? Director Trustee?
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the
Yates.
underwriting team, any comments from anyone on these issues?
Cheryl, go ahead and state your.
Directors, good evening. Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think the pricing went very well today. Overall, we were oversubscribed 3.9 times. So we're able to lower the yield by 7 basis points in that first term bond, 3 basis points in each of the next term bonds. So I think overall, it was very successful. The team did a great job.
Thank you. Very good. We have any other questions from directors or any questions they want to ask of our team? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Trustee.
Aye.
Director Holliday.
Aye.
Director Jones.
Aye.
Director Dobbs-Smith.
Aye.
Director Weatherford.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Ordinance is adopted.
Mayor, there's an emergency clause associated with this ordinance. It's found in section 26, which I'll read in its entirety. Section 26 is hereby ascertained and declared that the project is immediately needed for the preservation of the public peace, health, and safety, and to remove existing hazards thereto. The project cannot be accomplished without the issuance of bonds. Therefore, it is declared that an emergency exists, and this ordinance being necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, and safety shall be enforced and take effect immediately upon and after its passage. That concludes your reading. If you would, entertain a motion, second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director Trustee,
Second.
seconded by Director Garcia. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Emergency clause is adopted. This brings us to ordinance O-22-25. And I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules to read by title only.
So moved.
Second.
Director Dobbs-Smith, and who made the second?
I did, Larry. You
Elaine.
know that was me.
Director Jones. We're going to have the staff report provided by, oh, sorry. All in favor of the motion to suspend the rules, read by title only, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is approved, and the staff report will be provided by City Manager, Mr. Bill Burrow.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. The petition.
Bill, let me read it first.
Oh, go ahead.
Ah,
This is ordinance O-22-25, an ordinance accepting the annexation of certain territory located on approximately 56.2 acres on real estate ID number 3840 to the city of Hot Springs, Arkansas, assigning the lands to a zoning district and to a board district, revising the future land use map, and for other purposes. That now concludes your reading. If you would, entertain a motion second to
you
adopt.
got it. Thank you. Motion to
moved.
adopt?
Second.
Who made the first one? Who made the motion? Director
Director
Garcia, seconded by Director Jones. Now the staff report will be provided by Mr. Bill Burrow, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. The petitioner, EPR Parks LLC, represented by Ray Owen Jr. of Owen, Farnell, and Garner, and Daniel George of BNF Engineering, presented a petition to the Garland County Court requesting the annexation of certain property located north of Magic Springs Theme and Water Park. In addition to the petition, a legal description describing the property as contiguous to the city limits and a map visually depicting property was filed with the county clerk's office. The area proposed to be annexed is approximately 56.2 acres that at its southern border is contiguous to the city limits, and the Garland County tax assessor shows the subject property, RPID 3840, is owned by petitioner EPR Parks LLC, successor in interest of CNL Income Magic Springs LLC. Pursuant to Arkansas Code Annotated 144601, the county judge held a public hearing on the proposed annexation on May the 5th of this year, for which notice was published in the Sentinel Record once a week for 3 consecutive weeks leading up to the hearing date. The decree of annexation for the petitioner was entered on May 13th, 2022. The filing of the decree began the 30-day waiting period during which the interested parties could institute a proceeding to prevent the annexation. The waiting period provides the public with the opportunity to protest the proposed annexation. The county clerk's office is required by state law to coordinate with Arkansas GIS and has indicated that they have initiated coordination. Petitioner filed an application for initial zoning to the Hot Springs Planning Commission as petitioners desire C4 Regional Commercial Open Display District, which is the same zoning designation as their contiguous property on which the theme and water park is situated. Planning Commission met on June 9th, 2022, and by their 7-0 vote recommended the board amend the zoning map to assign initial zoning of C4 Residential Commercial Open Display District as requested by the applicant in a future land use map designation of Tourist Commercial. The 30-day wait period has passed and no protest actions have been filed. The Board of Directors now may adopt an ordinance accepting the territory, assigning it a zone district, a future land use designation, and to a city board district. Should the voluntary annexation petition be granted, District Number 1 would be the most proper district assignment for the property as it is contiguous to property located in that board district. Mayor, that completes.
Very good. Thank you. Did we have anyone?
We did.
We'd like to call Daniel George forward, signed up for this topic. I also have Ray Owen. I don't care which order you want to come up.
Would it be okay if I went first?
Mr. Owen, please come over and restate your name, address, and district, please.
My name is Ray Owen Jr. I'm an attorney in Hot Springs. Been practicing here a little over 40 years now, and my address is 110 Lee Circle, which I think is in District 6. Is that right?
That's correct.
And then this would, this annexation would, I believe, would benefit District 1. Is that correct?
Yeah.
The Magic Springs has been talking for the last several years about a way to bring more people in to spend time at Magic Springs and to let them stay conveniently near the Magic Springs property. They've owned this 56 acres for a long time, but it's basically undeveloped at this point in time. But they have plans to perhaps put in cabins, places for tent camping, places for camping if you're in one of those $500,000 Greyhound bus type things. That's camping. I think that's camping. Maybe that's luxury camping. But anyway, to try to encourage people to come and spend more than a couple of days in the Hot Springs area, probably a week. And they would have a store there to be able to sell supplies and such as that. This is all preliminary now, and we're not exactly sure when it would happen, but that's the discussions that have been held, and the thought is to do this development, and therefore that's been the incentive to drive this petition for annexation forward. And I'll be glad to try to answer any other questions you've got. I have with me not only George, but also Jessica Hanna, who is the new general manager of Magic Springs. And we're very proud of her and the work, because she's been working at Magic Springs since maybe the mayor was a young man. She's been out there. I think she started working there at age 14. Is that right? 15. And she's only 23 now, so it's all right. Be glad to try to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions of Mr. Owen? Okay, thank you.
We thank you for your support.
Does Mr. Daniel George want to say a few words? State your name, address, and district, please.
Daniel George with B&F Engineering, 928 Airport Road. Forgive me, I don't know our district there at the office, but it's a good opportunity for one of the things we identified early on was the development they're looking at is split between the parcel that the park is currently on as well as this new parcel. And so what the annexation allows us to do is bring all the police, fire, sanitation, all those services under one umbrella and really clean that up where there's no ambiguity when you're out there. If there's an emergency, who's to respond and take care of that. So any questions for me?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
That completes those that have signed up. Any discussion amongst directors? Director Garcia?
Just clarification for everyone that this is this question before us is approving the annexation. Any development would come to the Planning Commission with their plans when they submit for building permits. and we're just authorizing the annexation at this time. Is that correct?
With the assigned zoning.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Very good. Any additional comments or questions? Any discussion amongst directors? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Director Trustee?
Aye.
Director Holliday?
Aye.
Director Jones?
Aye.
Director Dobbs-Smith?
Aye.
Director Weatherford?
Aye.
Director Garcia?
Aye.
Mayor McCabe?
Aye. Ordinance is adopted. Our final action item of the evening is to consider ordinance O-22-26, and I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules to read by title only.
So moved.
Director Trustee,
Second.
seconded by Director Garcia. All in favor of the motion to suspend the rules and read by title only, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motions are approved. Council, please read by title.
Ordinance O-22-26, an ordinance amending ordinance number 6410, regulating short-term residential rental businesses within the city of Hot Springs, Arkansas, declaring an emergency and for other purposes. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would entertain a motion second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Director Jones, seconded by Director Garcia. And our staff report will be provided by City Attorney, Mr. Brian Albright.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance 6405, which was adopted by the Hot Springs Board of Directors on December 7th of last year, was amended by Ordinance 6410, adopted on January the 18th. It established certain limitations on the aggregate number of short-term residential rental licenses within residentially zoned districts. The Board of Directors held a work session on May 31st of this year to discuss the status of short-term residential rental licenses within residentially zoned districts. As a result, and in an effort to reduce the impact of the short-term residential rental licenses within the established neighborhoods, staff recommends that the aggregate number of short-term residential rental licenses within residentially zoned districts should be reduced from 500 per calendar year to 400 per calendar year. In seeking to orderly transition from 500 in 2022 calendar year to 400 beginning in the calendar year 2023, staff further recommends that applications for special use permits cease on November 1st of 2022. Should the aggregate number of licenses within residentially zoned districts on January 1, 2023 be greater than 400, such existing licenses that so exceed 400 will be eligible for and subject to annual renewal pursuant to Section 4J of Ordinance 6405. Recommendations of the city staff require the approval of the Board of Directors, and adoption of such amendments are necessary for the regulation of these licenses. That concludes the prepared report. I will note that Section 1 of the proposed ordinance tonight amends Section 1 of Ordinance 6410 by placing a cutoff date of November 1 at 12 noon for the application for special use permits. That will enable staff to understand by December 21st, which is the cutoff for BZA appeals, just how many number of licenses we have within these residentially zoned areas. And then Section 2 of this proposed ordinance amends Section 2 of Ordinance 6410 by reducing that number from 500 to 400, with the caveat that if there are licenses that exceed that 400 number and they are properly renewed, those will continue to be licensed until attrition takes its place to reduce it down to 400, where the board discussed the other night. Be happy to attempt to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions of our city attorney from the board members? Hearing none, we'll move to those in the audience that signed up to speak. Our first speaker or citizen will be Mr. Brad Wolkin. Please come forward and restate your name, address, and district, please. And we have approximately 3 minutes of time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Brad Wolkin at 121 Bridgewater Point. About 3 years ago, my neighborhood was annexed into the city, and I'm thankful for the services and the protections that came with that. In February 2018, both the Arkansas and Louisiana Supreme Courts made opposite rulings concerning STRs. Louisiana decided that an STR was a commercial use of a single-family residential property if the covenants, conditions, and restrictions restricted such use. Arkansas, however, ruled that a STR in the case they considered was a residential use of that home because while the CC&R prohibited using the property for a commercial purpose, the examples used in their CC&R were, quote, hotels and motels, unquote. The Arkansas court went on in that ruling to say, drafters of the CC&R could have included a prohibition on rentals, but did not do so. We are trying to fit a 21st century concept into a 20th century set of zoning laws, and it's not always a sensible fit. Horizontal property regimes, bills of assurance that were written in the last half of the 20th century were never envisioned to have such a use. Revising HOAs and BOAs is a long-term legal process. Lawyers have to be hired, neighborhoods have to have meetings and seek consensus. Usually 60% of the property owners must agree, and this takes time and due diligence, and it can be expensive. I applaud the board for their amendment brought forward tonight. It's a good first step. But I ask the board to consider 3 additional ideas down the road. 1, a 3 or 4 night minimum stay for an STR in an R1 zone to limit the nuisance of transient move-ins and move-outs each week. 2, a better notification and appeal process when an STR application is made, rather than only after a permit is issued. You can appeal after the fact, only to the Board of Zoning Adjustments, and they have no authority to overturn a permit based on neighborhood concerns and objections. Number 3, and most important, provide time, more time for the HOAs and the BOAs and the HPRs that are already in existence throughout Hot Springs, and give other neighborhoods the opportunity to form them if they so desire. We need a minimum of 6 months time period to hold these meetings, hire those attorneys, draft the documents, and file the legal documents. The Arkansas Supreme Court, their decision provides us the opportunity to do that. And I ask that the Hot Springs Board of Directors will provide the residents the same opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of Mr. Wolken from the board members? Thank you. Our next citizen that signed up to speak is Ms. Brianna Moore. Please come forward and restate your name, address, and district, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Brianna Moore. I am living at 905 Prospect. I'm in District 3. I have several properties in District 1. I own several businesses up there. I'm speaking against lowering the number of licenses. I think that a 20% decrease of licenses, it hasn't been a year yet for you to see how the impact of STRs will be for the city. And I think 500 was a great start. Not everyone has gotten their businesses up and running. And if you institute a deadline on November, which has just come up, it might change some business plans. I think that STRs are a good thing and a bad thing. I know that they affect housing. I do know that housing affordability is an issue in Hot Springs. There are other things that affect housing affordability. Minimum housing standards. Our vacancy rate is 24% in Hot Springs, which is 90% more of other municipalities. District 2 is completely almost vacant. So there are other things that are affecting housing other than STRs, which I think that it's important if this much energy is going into short-term rentals, housing could benefit from land bank ideas, renter standards. And I also go back to the 2040 comprehensive plan that the city has put together, talking about an economy that works with us. And from the 2040 plan, it talks about a city that maximizes its economic potential and supports the creative and entrepreneurial talents of its citizens in creation of thriving businesses. STRs do that. It supports the economy and the families of this neighborhood and the city. And then also limiting STRs, especially if you look at Park Avenue, it is a different world, and STRs have played a part in that. And so when you look at part of the Forward Hot Springs 2040 Comprehensive Plan, 85% of the respondents said that they would like neighborhood revitalization as one of the top 3 things to address. And it would, lake properties are not the same as other neighborhoods. Elaine, you have 10 STRs in your district? And is that correct? I mean, there's not many. Two? So there are many opportunities for other, you have 10 in yours. So the 2040 plan, if you look at the neighborhood reinvestment and what it's done for some of the neighborhoods, where infrastructure exists, it will support population growth, diversify demographics, and promote economic development, which STRs are doing. So give it a year, see what happens. There's a lot of people who are utilizing STRs to support their families, and let them go through the process like you put forward and let that happen. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Questions of Ms. Moore?
Yeah.
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Oh, Marcia has a question. Yes.
Yes. One of the questions is, I heard you say the word neighborhood several times.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, I'm thinking in my mind when you say neighborhood, and I think about the neighborhood where you live now.
Yeah.
And I think that the difference between a neighborhood and a commercial area are usually defined by how many people live there. I mean, commercial areas, there are mixed use and there are people who do live in commercial areas. But a neighborhood, to me, evokes friends, neighbors, people that you know. And that is one of the reasons that I have fought so hard to try to protect our neighborhoods. And then I also wondered, I know that you lived in District 1 and you lived near or
across the street
from
several.
your business.
Yes.
And I wondered why you chose to move from that more commercial area to a neighborhood.
Oh, so the first question.
The first was more of a commentary.
A statement.
Yeah.
So you want the long story?
Just a short one, because the time goes.
So I lived in District 1 for 7 years. I lived next to my business. I lived next to several Airbnbs. I actually lived across from my own. And I also lived next to subsidized housing and renters that do not respect their area, landlords that do not respect their neighbors. The house that I live in now was the 6th house that we placed a bid on to purchase. It has 2 bathrooms, so I don't have to share a bathroom with my sons anymore, so that was an advantage. The fact that it was in your district just happened to be, I'm happy to be there. And I told you in the beginning, my heart is in District 1, and not to take it personally. But no, I tried several times to stay in District 1, and it didn't work out, unfortunately.
Well, that answers my question. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I've been an Airbnb owner for 5 years. So if you have any questions, I've hosted hundreds of people, all positive experiences. So if you have any questions from an Airbnb host, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Oh, Director Weatherford?
Yeah. Is there an STR or an Airbnb next to where you live now?
I know of So 1003 Prospect, they have a pool, and you can hear them enjoying the pool. It does not bother me because they're having a really great time. I know that there's a noise ordinance. I also know that there's a complaint line and a website, so if I do have any problems, I can use those resources. There's one catty corner on the hill. Knock on wood, they have all been very pleasant experiences. I find that short-term renters are generally respectful people, and they respect people's properties. If it's a host that is allowing and setting expectations for parties, that's a host problem. So that's somebody that you need to hold accountable, by revoking their licenses, but you have that process in place. You've set that process. So anything else for y'all? I'm happy to.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
I know that there was only 2 people that signed up to speak on this item. Is there anybody else in the audience that wanted to come forward? Please come forward and state your name. Please come forward and state your name, address, and district, please.
Yes, Joseph Kimmer, 501 Congress Street, off of Park. When I first moved in there were no Airbnbs around me. Right now I have, I'm almost surrounded by them. There's 2 right across the street. There's one right beside me. There's one right behind me, and there's one couple doors down, and then there's another one 3 doors down off of Congress Street. Lots of these Airbnbs suddenly became available, and I've not found it to be a great situation. I happen to agree with you right there. I want neighbors. There's a little sign off my street. It says neighborhood watch. We can't have a neighborhood watch if I don't know who's in my neighborhood from day to day. And I just wanted to voice my opinion on that, because I really do believe that this particular business, and it is a business, is not helpful for creating a neighborhood that is safe and that's productive. And that's basically what I wanted to say.
Well,
Okay, if you look in my area, you will recognize the number of Airbnbs that have been built there. If these guys, why don't they take these downtown business buildings and turn them into Airbnbs? That would be great by me. That is meant for a business. But this is a little place back up near the park, and it's not meant for a business. That's what I want to say.
Any questions of this gentleman? Thank you. I think we had some others that wanted to come forward. Anybody else would like to speak on this issue?
I'll go ahead and say something if I can.
Please come forward and state your name and address, please.
115 Mooney Street, Park Avenue. We have, at this point, 2 buildings that are Airbnb. We've lived in Hot Springs 8 years and in the Park Avenue area, and I have to just, what was said about the different world Park Avenue is so true. And I realize it may not be a traditional neighborhood, but having a business that helps save families, which is what our short-term rental did for us, it pays the medical, it pays the insurance, it's cleaned the neighborhood up. It's been a real lifesaver for us. It might not be a traditional neighborhood, but we have plenty of empty houses that I wish some other owners would come in. If it was easier in Hot Springs for STRs to move in, I wish somebody would go fix up some of these houses and let it work for their family as well and make our neighborhoods better. We love our STRs. It's saved us, just so you know.
Thank you. Any questions of this gentleman? Thank you. Was there anybody else that wanted to come forward and speak on this?
I'd like to suggest that you look at what's been happening in New Orleans with these Airbnbs.
Anybody else want to come forward and speak on this?
Is a shame. They're making it
Please,
impossible for
please.
people to buy houses.
All right, please. Thank you. If no one else is going to speak, then we'll go to the discussion amongst directors. Is there discussion amongst directors? Director Garcia.
Yes, sir. First, would you take one, pass it around? I just want to address some of the comments that were made, and I don't think that, for me personally, and I don't think the board as a whole, are opposed to short-term rentals. There are some issues that have arisen, and it has been over a year. We started the first ordinance March of 2021. The reason this is coming forward is if to give potential investors plenty of time to get their request in for license, but it's still at 500, and if we reach 500 by the deadline, it's not going to go down. It will only reduce, because this will be almost 2 years that we have been working on getting licensed STRs. The comment about our 2040 plan was emphasis on the commercial businesses. And this makes the argument that I hear in complaints that their neighborhood has been changed from residential, with the character becoming more of a commercial business. When the number or density of the STRs in a local neighborhood becomes such that you're surrounded, or the majority is of STR versus the local neighbors that reside, it does change the character of the neighborhood. And I'll offer another amendment to this to amend the administrative policy for special use permit for short-term residential rentals that were promulgated pursuant to ordinance number 6405 to amend to strike Board of Zoning adjustments in section 7, 8, and 9 and replace with the City Board of Directors, and add item 10 that there shall not be a fee charged to file an appeal. And likewise, this would also strike Board of Zoning adjustments in section 9 of ordinance number 6405 as amended, relating to short-term rentals, and replace with the Hot Springs Board of Directors. This doesn't change anything other than the appeals to come to the board, and to instead of the Board of Zoning adjustments, and to not charge a fee. And based on the reports on short-term rentals, this would not be a heavy burden for the board, as there have not been very many appeals. But the board can consider any character changes to that neighborhood for purposes of review. And I would request a second.
Director.
Is she making that in a motion?
Yes.
I'll second that, because when we originally talked about it, I wanted it to come to the board, and I can't remember who wanted it to go to BZA, but somebody said it would be an unduly burden on the Board of Directors to hear these. As I understand, there's only been 2 to the BZA. And on top of that, they can't change it. For some reason, it's written that it's kind of, when it comes to them, it's law. It can't be changed. So if we can't, you got to write something in there where we can change it when it comes to us. Not like when it goes to the BZA. So we've got to have a little authority to do something.
So we have a motion by Director Garcia, seconded by Director Weatherford, to amend what's before you with the striking of the Board of Zoning Adjustments in section 7, 8, 9, and replaced with City Board of Directors. And to, on item 10, indicate that there will be no fee charged to file an appeal, and then also to strike Board of Zoning Adjustments section N of the ordinance 6405, and replacing that with Hot Springs Board of Directors. Discussion amongst directors? Just any discussion on this, on the motion to amend?
Well, I have a question for the city attorney, because it is a special use permit that is going to staff and then to BZA. Is this even something that can be appealed based on the process, or can be amended based on the processes that we have currently in the city?
Yes, but perhaps not as moved. What has been addressed in the motion is an administrative matter. So you can't amend the administrative policy, but what you can do in section 7 of section D of 6405 is to amend that section consistent with Director Garcia's motion, whereby those appeals would not go to the planning, to the city's planning and development director pursuant to criteria that's promulgated by the city manager, but rather would come to you. So it wouldn't be an amendment to the administrative policy that oversteps the bounds, but you certainly can cut out the administrative policy if that's what you choose to do. And then, as she referenced in section N of 6405, striking Board of Zoning Adjustments and stating Board of Directors.
So to the wording to be correct would need to reference section, what did you say? Section
It would be D7.
D, yeah, D7, and that would cause the administrative policy to be updated or removed?
You would be striking the administrative policy. It would no longer be pursuant to an administrative policy. It would be pursuant to your ordinance.
So,
6410.
Mayor, I therefore and ask for the second of the motion to also make those changes from the administrative policy to D7 of the ordinance. For the same.
We probably need to pull the original motion to amend, don't we, and bring that down and start it over?
Yeah, I'm not real sure what that does to the original motion to adopt that's on the floor, because it references the.
Well, we need to make sure we do this proper. And this isn't.
I agree.
Doesn't look like it's the setting for that.
Well, he didn't get, there was quite a bit of discussion, if you recall, at our agenda meeting or work session on this. And so all of this was not included in this motion that came before us tonight. And, but there was discussion about this as well. And under the current circumstances, I didn't get to speak with the city attorney for the proper wording. So what do you recommend?
Well, assuming that the board is comfortable with the November 1st deadline for applications such as this in residentially zoned districts, it appears we have enough time on the calendar to table this and bring back an amendment that meets your desires on this, and still give developers enough time to work until November 1st.
For my amendment?
Our next board meeting would be what, July 2nd? Or July 5th, I think.
5th.
Sorry,
Yeah.
July 5th.
Mayor,
Director Trustee.
Attorney Albright, I think you'd probably need some time to look at these amendments and see if they're going to impact any other areas of the STRs. And you summed it up well. I think we have time to look at this for a week and bring it back to the July 5th or the July 19th meeting, and still have plenty of time for those developers or those people interested in purchasing these properties, and giving them time to act before the November 1 deadline.
Well, I move to table to the July 5th meeting.
Motion to table,
Second.
seconded by Director Trustee. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Can I get clarification real quick? Are we tabling the amendment or tabling the item?
Tabling the item.
Okay, so the entire item, not just
Yep.
not just the amendment. Okay.
Tabling 022-26.
Okay.
Because we do want to get it right.
So we have a motion and a second to table. Any further discussion? Well, we probably don't have discussion on motion to table. Call the roll.
Director Holliday?
Aye.
Director Jones?
Aye.
Director Dobbs-Smith?
Aye.
Director Weatherford?
Aye.
Director Garcia?
Aye.
Director Trustee?
Aye.
Mayor McCabe?
Aye. Motion to table is approved, adopted. That concludes the action items of this evening. We have Board of Directors items for discussion. Do we have items for discussion?
I have something
Director
real
Garcia,
quick.
or Director Holliday.
Thanks. The city manager forgot to mention something else that happened this weekend that I did just want to say was another successful event. It was really great in the city of Hot Springs that while we had Juneteenth going on in one part of downtown, we also had the 4th Pride Parade and the first one where we were actually in the street and ended up at Central Theater. So we had multiple celebrations in the city of Hot Springs where people were out and safe and celebrating who they are in the world. And I just think it's something that's really, we should all be proud of, and that was really remarkable. So it was really great. And we did have PD helping on both sides of downtown, and just a lot of positive energy and celebrating going on. So wanted to make sure that was part of the conversation too.
Very nice. My bad. Any other Board of Directors items for discussion? Want to recognize our city manager, Mr. Bill Burrow, on his recertification through his continuing education program. The Arkansas, I got a little certificate here. Arkansas Municipal League presents this certified municipal official certificate to City Manager Bill Burrow, Hot Springs, Arkansas, in recognition of successfully completing 21 hours of certified municipal official, certified municipal personal training. Topics include municipal finance, municipal personnel management, municipal government structure. Presented at the Winter Conference of the Arkansas Municipal League on this 27th day of March 2022. Signed by the head of Municipal League, Mayor Tim McKinney, and as president, and Mr. Mark Hayes as executive director of the Arkansas Municipal League. The Winter Conference wasn't so much in winter.
Congratulations.
Right? It got pushed back because of COVID and that, so Mr. Burrow, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Sheila must have did that.
Well, we know you don't ever brag on what you do, so Sheila brags on it.
All right, well, if there's no further business, Director Trustee.
Mayor, I would just like to confirm at the Arkansas Municipal League Conference that City Manager Burrow had a note on his badge that said I'm certified. So I didn't know what that was until I had to inquire as to what that meant. But
About 3 more years.
he
you
is
can have one of
certified.
those too.
That's right. But congratulations, Bill.
Thank
A
you.
ribbon, yes.
We
a
do
ribbon.
have one gentleman who signed up for public comment, so please remain. Yeah. And so at this time, we'll have a motion to adjourn.
Well, Mayor, I kept looking at you and you wouldn't look at me.
You probably couldn't see me through 3 panes of glass.
It is now 7:24, and I move that we adjourn the board meeting as of now. Thank you, Mayor.
Second.
Seconded by Director Holliday, was it? Director Garcia? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned, but stay tuned.